I'm Maya Gudka, your host, and in this podcast, I help high achievers go from box-ticking busyness where you're overworked and overlooked to designing spacious work and lives that you're genuinely excited to wake up to. So when it comes to resetting our morning routines, you don't need a 5 a.m. wake up. You don't need 12 habits before breakfast. And you definitely do not need to feel like you're already behind by 9 a.m. But if you're a high achiever, what you do need is a couple of habits that actually work and permission to drop one specific thing from your routine entirely, which I will dive into today. So whether your day starts with a school run, a Zoom call, or you're just wondering where you left that coffee mug of yours, this is how you reclaim your mornings this month. So September always feels like the real new year. After the summer holidays, we hopefully had some time to ourselves, or at least we had a change in pace. But now we get a fresh slate, routines shift and energy changes, and it's the perfect time to think through our current routines and see where perhaps we want to tweak them. What I don't want, though, is for your morning routine to become just a performance metric. And believe me, I have seen this with my clients, my high achieving clients. You've seen the cold plunges, you've seen the journaling, the miracle mornings. But instead of inspiring you, they probably leave you feeling more behind. So this episode is about doing less, but doing it better, and also really focusing on the stuff that makes the most of that morning window. There are some unique things about the morning window that we can make the most of. And just like we like to make the most of seasons on this podcast and lean into that energy, we can lean into the energy of a morning and make the most of it, but we don't need to chuck absolutely everything at it. So let me start with the things that are actually backed by science. There's only two things that we really need. And the first one is morning light with some gentle movement, getting outside. It can be for a couple of minutes or it can be a bit longer, but we now know that this helps regulate our cortisol so that we get those beneficial hormones earlier on in the day, and then they can wind down later on, so we don't end up with an inverted schedule where we're starting to get more and more wired before bed. Some gentle movement is fabulous, whether that is maybe walking some kids to school or the bus stop or doing the commute. You don't need a hardcore workout, and there is some evidence to suggest, especially for those of us who are now in our 30s and 40s, that doing a hardcore workout at this time is not the optimal time. Our bodies aren't sufficiently warmed up and woken up to go super hard. Now, this is not me saying don't do your hard workout, because I know that for many people that is their main window to do so. And as long as you're warmed up sufficiently, you know yourself, I'm not here to tell you to do otherwise. But it's not something that is unique to a morning. So I personally do my strength-based workouts a bit later on in the day, either mid-morning or early afternoon. I do find early afternoon harder, but some of the experts will say that is the optimal time physiologically for you to be able to take on the harder workouts. You're better fueled and your body is fully warmed up. So for me personally, the morning is a time to get some daylight, some walks around the block, or I'll get my zone 2 walk in nature or walk run in nature, as it currently is, out of the way. And I always feel a million times better when I've done that. I feel like I'm able to sort of tackle the next thing a lot more successfully when I have had that time outside. The only other component here that is something unique to mornings is that deep work window. Now, when you have just woken up, unless the first thing you've done is check all social media and all communications channels, where you will very quickly scramble your brain. If you've managed to avoid some of that, then your brain will have the least amount of cognitive interference. Cal Newport refers to this as there's a lot of fewer conflicting pressures in your cognition at that time. It's a great opportunity to tackle some of your most challenging tasks and your cognitively demanding tasks. I recommend doing something that aligns with your longer term goals. It's the stuff that no one's going to tap you on the shoulder at the end of the week and go, where's that piece of work that is going to be critical to your long-term vision, Maya? It's the stuff that's important but not urgent. And so if it doesn't get done now, not only cognitively we're going to find it more challenging later, but we're going to have more distractions, more fires to put out later. So there's that practical element as well, that we have a more protected energy space at this time of day. Not only that, but you feel like $1 million when you have knocked some of those more challenging things off your list. And I personally find that gives me more momentum for the rest of the day. If you are somebody who's been interested in vision building, in my Vision Unblock program, which is a super accessible 3-day micro shift program, we actually create specific windows for you to work on your vision. And this morning time is the perfect time. So if you are unsure how to use that deep work time in service of your longer term career and work design, then that 3-day program, it's an absolute bargain, is available to you. And I'll put a link in the show notes to that. So the third bit here is what to drop. Now, this is not something that is bad for you, and it's certainly something that I do every day, but it's one that doesn't need to happen in the morning, and I would argue that we could all benefit from moving it. And that is the reflective stuff, the reflective practice. In the zone of perhaps more spiritual practice, journaling, gratitude, and reflection, this is great stuff to do. And if you're in a beautiful habit there of doing that in the mornings and that works for you, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, put it that way. But if you're struggling to fit in some of those other two elements that I just mentioned, the light and the gentle movement, or that really high quality, important work, then this is your candidate for moving something to the evening. Not only but there are benefits to doing it in the evening. So your brain is wanting to wind down in the evening. It is therefore easier to turn some of these journaling, processing activities into part of your wind down routine. When I was doing a health assessment, they asked me, do I do any meditation or hypnosis before bed? And I said, yeah, I actually listened to some stuff. And they said, that's going to be a real win, because not only are you getting that relaxation that primes you for great sleep, but you're also going to get the benefits of that meditation. So you get the benefits, but you also set yourself up for great sleep. And we know that to have a fabulous morning routine, we actually need really good sleep the night before. So I think it's a great opportunity to take a brilliant activity that is that more reflective journaling practice and move it to the evenings. Now, I've always done some sort of gratitude towards bed, 3 good things, 3 things I'm grateful for. Currently, the way that I'm doing it is I'm asking myself what made today special. And that is definitely something that has been working beautifully over the summer holidays, where you have a lot of different things happening and it's nice to be able to capture those. So it serves as a little bit of a log and a memory thing, but it's also something that can really unlock those feelings of deeper gratitude, those warm, fuzzy feelings, which I think are really nice before bed. One thing I have to be slightly careful of, though, is that when I am there with my journal, unwinding in that power down time before bed, I can start to plan a little bit. In that reflective mode, I can start getting a little bit planful. That then activates me and wakes me up. So it's something that I'm really mindful of. And if I am going to do it, I'm trying my best to do that slightly earlier, because otherwise I can get quite hyped up. JJ Virgin, who has a podcast which is all about wellness over 40, talks about reading a book that's good but not that good, because she doesn't want to read anything, even self-development, anything that will inspire her to start getting into action taking mode. She wants to put aside so that she can start to wind down. I think the only thing that I want to add in here is that if you want some space for that longer term planning work, that can be better off earlier on in the day or as part of that morning routine. And that leads me on to a final fun motivational piece, which is something that comes from Laura Vanderkam. And she talks about using your first coffee as a cue for doing a tough task. We all love that hot drink early on in the day, whether that's a tea or a coffee. And if we can pair that with a tough task, you associate that coffee with forward motivation, and you're literally sipping it while you're getting that task done. And I found this to be so good at getting me going on some tasks that I've been putting off. And I have another coffee a little bit later on in the day, about 11, I can then use again in that way. So that's just a nice little add-on to your morning, and it's a bit of habit stacking, pairing your coffee with that hard task. That can work out really well. And often what I'm using that first coffee, because I have that first one fairly soon after waking up. Don't worry, I do have a load of water, so I'm not like dehydrating myself, but I have that one quite early on, and that will often be me with the diary doing some long range planny stuff, even if it's not reflective work. So I may be with a journal, it just may not be in that reflective way. So I hope that's given you some food for thought as you look at your routine. If you felt like it was either overwhelming, not quite working for you, or just needed that fresh lens, what you can take away from today is the idea that your morning really just needs those two fundamental things: the daylight and that opportunity to do that more important work. You can move some of the other stuff into the evening, and you can actually benefit your sleep as a result and get some of those positive psychology benefits of doing that gratitude work later in the day. I personally am also quite in the mood to kind of get up and go and I've got that get up and go energy in the morning. So I don't want to get lost in reflection at that time of day. And you can make it fun. Use that favorite beverage as a sidekick and as a way of measuring your hard tasks and whether you got them done. So if you need more inspiration for how to actually fill that power hour in the morning, this podcast used to be called the golden hour. So this idea of having a really powerful strategic hour early on in the day has been there for a long time. Then check out Vision Unblocked, the 3-day program. It's super practical. It's built specifically for super busy people. So it's all in an audio format and will not demand much of your time, but it will get you to make some shifts that have been described as super transformational. So I'll put a link for that in the show notes, and good luck with your mornings. Let me know how they're going. I will update you on mine. One little shift that I'm trying to make is that I've been having that first coffee on a very comfy chair in the bedroom, but that's a very busy environment in the mornings. And so if I want to get more intentional about swallowing my frog earlier on, I'm thinking I need to have that first cup of coffee at the desk. Now, I will let you know how that goes. Obviously, I have a family, youngish family, so I'm not sure what's going to be practical when it comes to that stuff. My husband and I do split the day, so he is the morning guy. I am the afternoon onwards gal. So we do have a bit of a split there, and I know that will look really different for each of you, and you're going to have to make the best of what configuration can be possible in your current context. That said, the beauty of these two key elements is that you can get that daylight by doing the commute, by doing the school drop. And you can do that deep work, that harder task when you sit down in your office at your desk, and it can be 9 a.m. It doesn't need to be first thing. It's still just part of that first chunk of your day. And ideally, what this does mean is that you're not willy-nilly accepting 9 a.m. meetings, because that's obviously going to mean that that best portion of your brain is being funneled into those meetings rather than that kind of important and not urgent work. And so wherever you do have some control there, and typically my clients do when we look at their calendars, I really encourage you to protect those first chunks of the day. My clients are now amazing. If they found that I have fitted them in before 10 or 11 a.m., they're actually now like grateful. Even if I arrive at the desk a bit flustered because it's 9:30 and I had to fit in my walk run or something else before, they'll be really grateful. So I think we can all as leaders encourage others around us as well to start viewing that first part of the morning differently and not necessarily filling it with meetings which could take place later on. I know this is not always possible, so it's all about what's within your control, and that's what I've put on the table here, some ideas for you, and then you can figure out which stuff you actually could change and what stuff right now at your current stage of life is going to have to be what it's got to be. But I hope that this simplifies rather than complicates your morning routine. So I look forward to connecting with you next time. Bye bye.